Okay, hello everyone. How are you all? Good afternoon. There's a good few of you here already. That's brilliant. Oh, thank you, Valerie. I'm needing everybody to keep their fingers crossed today. But other than turning everything off and just flicking a switch from Tuesday, everything is how I left it Tuesday afternoon. Can you all hear me to start with? Loud and clear. Brilliant. Thank you, Rebecca. Brilliant. Okay, so in theory, everything should work. We've got a nice clear picture as well, which is great. And although I never wish for a cloudy day means that you can see my screen a lot better, because I have a window in front of me here and I have a window in front of me that's well, to the side of me as well. So when it's really sunny, it blows out all the colours and everything. And I have to do sort of these little magical balancing acts with things to shield out the sun. So good morning. Hi, Mum. How are you? Good morning, or good afternoon even. Buttons Fair. Lovely to have you here. Hi, Otter Lady and Marion. Who else do we have? We have Lorraine Gower. We have Jean. Hi, Mary. And, oh, Helen's here. Hello, Helen. And Kathy as well. Oh, yeah, I'm hoping for that too today, Kathy. I think we're on to a winner today. I have good feelings for it. Right, so you can see from the side there that I'm going to use the Meadow of Sweet Peas. It's possibly the only one from the release, or the current release, that I hadn't used, not properly anyway. I've used it as a background, but I wanted to actually stencil it today with you. And I thought what might be a nice idea is to actually pair it with the previous sweet pea that we had from actually a long time ago. And if you look at the item numbers that I've put there, the sweet pea, the layering stencils were it's number 37, and the layering stencils for the Meadow of Sweet Peas is actually 211. So there's quite a big difference in time between these two, but I think they are still so relevant and they will work perfectly together. And I'm sure many of you will have this sweet pea in your collection, which is actually a DL size. The Meadow of Sweet Peas, which is the current release, is a 6x6, but I'm going to marry both of these images into a 5x7 card, just to be just to be that little bit confusing, but it just shows you that you will be able to mix and match from previous releases. And of course, I don't know, I think it was only right. We've got a meadow of sweet peas and we need to pair it with this sweet pea here. Now, I've already stenciled this image. I've done previous lives, and you'll find previous videos on YouTube where we've stenciled this and used this as a project already. So I've already stenciled it. And actually, it just so happens it works out to be similar pattern colouring to the packaging that Lisa has given us. So I've already stenciled this and I've embossed. I know, I couldn't believe myself. It made me giggle later on in Tuesday afternoon after I'd left you, that I'd, as much of a talking to as I'd given myself, that I must emboss. I still went and forgot, didn't I? So yeah, I've already stenciled this and I have embossed. I will be cutting this down to size to fit a little bit later on. I'm using just 3 colours here. So I'm using the Woodland Moss. So we have shades of Woodland Moss here. So to get the different shading for the greens, you don't need to always use more than one green. So you can use just different intensities of colour. And I thought I'd use the interference ink. So we have that little bit of mica. So these the flowers, not only do they look pretty with the colours that they are, but when you turn them to the light, I'm not sure if you'll be able, you might be able to just catch it there today, just a slight little sheen, but you'll have that mica in there too. And it might be a nice idea as well to make these the flowers stand out. You can either use flash paste with them, and I can show you at what stages you would use the flash paste, or you can use the ultra sticky glue and put gilding flakes on them just to make this flower stand out a little bit. And I'll be using the same colours for the background as well, just so the two tie in really nicely together. And you can see actually straight away just from the images that there's an awful lot of similarities between the older image, or the newer, the first release, let's put it that way. It's not an old image at all. These stencils will never get old, just from the earlier release to the release that we have today. So of course these are the layering stencils for both of the sweet peas, and they do each have their embossing folders as well. And actually that shows you quite clearly that the meadow sweet peas here is the 6x6, but the earlier release, just the sweet pea sort of bunch on its own, the little hand posy, is a DL size as well. And actually this sweet pea comes with its own die as well. I'm not using the die today actually, but I'll just show you that you can layer that down. You'll be able to cut that out and you'll have a really lovely embellishment to either just put onto a card by itself. I mean, that in itself doesn't need too much dressing, or you can just use it as is, which is what I'm using today. That's a really substantial die actually. If I put that in my hand, it's pretty much the size of my hand, so you get it's a really nice collection to have. So I'll keep that in there. Put that to one side because I'll be using that. Then the other set that I'm using today is the Tall and Skinny Alphabet, just because it's so lovely to use. I've already die cut those out, so I should be putting those on afterwards. But I really don't like to put too much onto the front of the card once I've done the stenciling, because I don't like covering up all the colours, to be honest. Right, so you can see the colours that I'm using there. I've put all the details of the die sets that I'm using. So I'm just going to remove those off of there for now, and I can put your chat back up there. Hi Star from Canada, it's lovely to have you here. I don't think I've recall seeing your name before, so welcome if it's your first time. It's nice to have you here. Laurie, your mum's nickname for you is Sweet Pea. Oh, that's lovely. Well, I think that's a good enough reason for you to have this set in your collection, either one of them. Hi Cheryl, how are you? Nice to have you here. Okie dokie, right. We have let's get going. Right, what I'm actually doing as well today, I'm stenciling on something a little bit different. I've stenciled my sweet pea onto Lisa's Super Smooth white cardstock. That's going to be my sort of main focal image, as it were, and you'll see how the card comes together in a second. But for the background, just to show you something a little bit different, this is just some card that I've had in my stash for a little while. It's a pearlescent card. It's basically pink when you look at it sort of flat on, but when you turn it to the light, it's got that sort of gold pearlescence to it. Mainly because I want to show you that you can stencil on something other than white. Obviously, if you stick to the lighter colours, you'll still get the true colours of the inks that you're using. But if you don't have this as a pearlescent, you can use like an American Crafts light pink or a light purple, or just even a lemon. It depends on the colour of the flowers that you're using. You could even use a green as well. If some of you have the white core cardstock from Lisa, that might be a nice one to stencil onto. You don't necessarily have to sand it back. You can just use it as a cardstock as it is. So yeah, just sometimes just to change things up a little bit, perhaps just consider stenciling on something different. So I say I'm stenciling onto this. It is a coated card, but it's super smooth. I've used this before. The ink sits on it nicely, and it will just give the background a bit of a lift. Now, I did say that I'm creating a 5x7 card, so I've already got my card blank ready. I'm going to be using it in landscape today. So the fold is actually, or 10th fold, so the fold is actually going to be at the top of the card. And you can see already that I've cut my this pearlescent cardstock down to the right width. I haven't changed the length of it yet. I shall do that in a second, or once I've stenciled. And I'll show you the reason for that in a little bit. Now, as I say, the Meadow of Sweet Peas, let me just bring in this here. There you go. The Meadow of Sweet Peas is actually a 6x6. Let's take that out of the packaging. There we are. So let me take the first stencil here. Now, you'll notice that the width of the cardstock that I'm using is 5 inches, which is obviously smaller than this. So just because it's 6x6, we don't have to stencil onto a 6x6. If you want to do this and you want to create this card in particular, and you can stencil this onto a 6x6, onto a, say, half a sheet of A4, let's put it that way, and then you can cut it down to size if you want to. But just to save a little bit of time, I'm stenciling on this, and it gives me a chance now just to position my stencils onto the design. So what I'm doing, there's 10 stencils in this kit, so it's quite a lot, and you actually get a nice chunk of plastic there, sort of mylar. So, but it will come together really quick. So what I'm just doing is checking and looking for the stencil which has a good range of design on it. So basically, I'm looking for a stencil that really covers the base of the design and reaches as far to the top as possible. And that is just going to allow me the chance to position my cardstock underneath. So I think, bearing in mind what I'm doing, it's more important for me, for this particular card and the way I want it to turn out, that I get the majority of the top of the design. So I'm going to position my cardstock towards the top of the stencil here, and you'll Okay. So can you all still hear me? I'm hoping that you're all still with me. No, we've frozen. I should be back. I should be back. I think that was just my internet. It seems to just time out. Yeah. I'll just wait for the comments to catch up. I have a feeling that I'll come back to you because that really was just my internet that went. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. The comments are catching up now. I could see what had happened there. That was literally my the internet that had cut out there. So I was just waiting for I can see all your see all your comments. See your comments say that I'd frozen, and now I'm just waiting for your comments to come through that you can see in here. Yeah, that's perfect. That's good. Actually, it will be a couple of weeks' time. I'm actually getting a new internet laid. I actually rely on satellite internet where I am at the moment. We don't have it hardwired into the house, but Ireland has made a concerted effort actually to bring hardwired broadband, fibre broadband into everybody's house. And I'm in a very rural area. I've literally got 2 houses that way, and then the rest of I've got fields around us. So in a couple of weeks, I may have to miss a week. It depends on what day the workmen come round, but I should actually get some decent internet connected into the house. So I'm actually really looking forward to that. Right, let's get going. You didn't miss anything. It cut out just at the right time. So I'm going to get stenciling with stencil number 1. So looking at this is the first time I've used these stencils actually. I didn't have a chance this morning to actually stencil them myself, so this all new to me. And I can see straight away that these are the flowers that we're stenciling, so that means I need to reach for my interference inks. Now, the interference inks I use these blending sponges for. They do work and respond to the white stencil brushes, these ones, but you do have to keep the stencil brushes specifically for the interference inks, and I haven't got enough of those at this stage, but I get on quite well with these blending sponges. So this first layer of colour, I should be adding crushed velvet. Now, obviously, I am stenciling onto a pearlescent card, so it possibly will sort of counteract the effect of the mica in the interference inks a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm using the inks because I've used the inks on the sweet pea here, and I just want to keep the colours continuous as I go through. And if I do have the benefits of extra mica through this, I may have the gold effect, like the gold you get from the stopped again. Okay, bear with me. Let's just wait for my screen to catch up. What I might do, yeah, I'm frozen again. What I might do, I might bring up the feed on the phone so I can see what you're seeing as well. Oh, how frustrating. Okay, you can hear me, but you can't see me. Device unexpectedly stopped. I'm not quite sure. Oh, goodness. Goodness gracious me. All right, let's put that back in. Connected the, oh, there we are, back again. Right, are we back and we working? Yes, we are. I can see myself on the Facebook there. Right, let's carry on going. Apologies for that. I'm having all sorts of issues. I'm hoping next week also I've got a little bit of something, a little bit of tech coming to me that can sort this out, because I can't keep having you cut out. That's no good for anybody, is it? Okay, so that's stencil number 1 with the crushed velvet there. And you can see how that sits even on that pearlescent card. So stencil number 2, I'm going to come in with the cherry bomb. So we're going to have the 2-tone colours on here like we did on the main on the focal image. That's the point. Yeah, even my brain's gone offline now, it would seem. So what I'm doing, there's some areas on here where I haven't stenciled underneath, so I'm really going on strong with the cherry bomb on those areas. And these areas where I've already got some of the interference ink sitting there, I'm just doing a little bit of layering, so I'm still going to get the colour show from underneath. So even with the interference inks, you can do that little bit of layering and that little bit of shading. Okay. And obviously these areas down the bottom here where the card isn't, I don't need to worry about putting any ink down there. So when I take that away, you can see actually, even from the camera there, that we have the cherry bomb sitting on top of the crushed velvet colour. So the interference inks do layer really nicely too. So I'm just checking this. We are still working with the flowers. And again, I'm conscious of adding quite a lot of colour. So again, there's areas with none of the interference ink underneath. So I'm going in with the crushed velvet there, because that will alternate the colours underneath. You'll see that in a second. Then we have areas here where we've got some of the crushed velvet already, so I'm just going to layer in a little bit of the cherry bomb on top, and it just creates that interest in the background as well, doesn't it? Okay, so we can do the crushed velvet down here. Now I'm using this Meadow of Sweet Peas as a background today, but it is beautiful in itself to use as the main focal image, and use it in a very similar way to the cards I made on Tuesday, where you literally just use the background image by itself and just layer a sentiment on the front. Even with these images, I think that would work lovely. Therefore you can stencil onto a white cardstock or your textured cardstock, and it would all work. So we have stencil number 4 again. So we're going to add some detail onto the flowers here, and I think I'm going to keep alternating between using the cherry bomb and the crushed velvet. So it's the cherry bomb this time. So you can easily use the matte blending inks onto these pearlescent cards as well. If you have pearlescent card in your stash and you want to give it a try, so you can easily use the matte blending inks. And I will be swapping when I come to do the foliage. I will be using the Woodland Moss in a second. But if you don't have the pearlescent card and you want to try it on white card, then I think that would work equally. Well, I know that it would work equally as well. It's all about just trying and experimenting, isn't it? And just seeing what, you know, just creating different cards and just seeing what effects work on each. So, I mean, that's really beautiful colour as it is. And I think that's almost, even without the green, that could almost be like Chinesey. You could use it like that. and have a focal point over the top, I think. So now we're going to come in to, and if you want to actually, if you wanted to carry on and just create just the stems, you could use just and alternate between the interference dyes or interference colours and just create the stems and add a few leaves with this, and I think that would work. I'm going to use the woodland moss because that's sort of the design I'm going for. But I think if you were onto this layer, stencil number 5, and you used either the crushed velvet or the cherry bomb and added those stems to these sweet peas, I think you could just leave that image as it is. I think that would look really oriental. I don't know about you. Maybe I should have done that. I don't know. You can see what I'm saying there, because even just with the stems and putting the stems in green, I think that just works as a really nice background as it is. Obviously, I'm going to stencil the whole lot. But again, and I've said it all the time with Lisa's stencils, you don't have to use everything that she gives you. You can just pick out details or stop where you want to, or not perhaps not add a particular layer if that works to your eye. I mean, we all view things differently, don't we? But these are the ways that we can actually get the most out of our stencils and our stash. So let me just take that away and let me just have a look. I mean, doesn't that just work in itself? You really could just leave it at that. And I've already die cut the sentiment, a couple of letters that I'm going to put on the final card. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to move the background there because I do want to continue stenciling. But if you can, now this is me going off at a complete tangent here. But if you imagine that this was cut down, that you didn't have this extra bit here, if you were just to put a sentiment on there, hi, or a happy birthday, or whichever you want to use, that in itself I think would work as a lovely card. You've got the flowers and the stems, and even on that pearlescent card, I think that looks quite oriental. What do you think? Or am I... I think let's try this one, because this is stencil number 6. This has got a few more stems on it as well. So let's stencil these in and then have another look, shall we? Isn't it interesting the way you view different things? And I think we get sort of so conditioned sometimes just to use everything that we have in front of us, that if we do just sort of stop and just take stock a little bit and have that confidence just to stop there after, I don't know, perhaps stencil number 6. Let's see what this one adds to it as well. Actually, I really like that on the pink background. With those colours, I think that works so well. And you don't necessarily, actually, it would really fit the fact that I don't emboss anything, wouldn't it, as well? Because then you don't have to add all the rest of the details in. So I'm going off a complete tangent here. Right, let's just take that away. Yeah, there we are. You just add a few more leaves there. I think that just anchors every one of the blooms there. And I think even without embossing, perhaps a bit more of a sentiment than we've got here, I think that works in itself. I think that's really, really pretty, especially on the pink background. But yes, as I say, I digress, and that's me going off at a complete tangent. But it'd be interesting if any of you do decide to use this and just have your own little take on these stencils. I mean, it still looks like a meadow like that, doesn't it? I really like that effect. But we will continue. So we are continuing to put the leaves on. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my stencil brush this time. So I'm going to get a different intensity of colour with these leaves by doing this, and then I'm going to come in with my smaller stencil brush and add some shading. So even though we are working onto a slightly different surface, these pearlized cardstocks are a little bit more coated, but you can see that it's fully able to take the ink and any blending techniques. Because you're working onto a slightly different colour, the colours perhaps might not be as intense as working onto white, but then that's all part of creating a different background, isn't it? But what it does do, it gives this woodland moss, which is possibly one of my favourite colours, it really gives that a pearlescence, because the pearlescence of the card still comes through. It's ever so pretty. It's really worth a try. And what I can do, using my smaller stencil brush, so therefore able to put a lot more concentrated layer of ink down, I can still get that blending effect which I like to get on all of my stenciling, where the base of the leaves is that little bit darker than the tip. Let's say the effects aren't as noticeable, but you can definitely still get them there. So you can see that I'm only adding ink to the base of the leaves. When I take that away, you should still be able to see that blending effect there. And just how pretty is that, just seeing that come together. I mean, we have another 3 stencils to finish this off, but I think even at this level you could leave it like that, couldn't you? It's there are so many options, there are so many different things you could do from this, but I will continue, of course. So we have less leaves on this stencil, so what I'm going to be inclined to do is add these leaves in to be really dark, a lot darker than the ones I've done before. It's not going to overpower the rest of the image because there's way less on there to stencil. So I'm laying that ink down really thick to be as bold as it possibly can. And actually, do you know what? I would encourage you to, if you do have any pearlescent card in your cardstock, in your stash, just to give it a go, because it adds that pearlescence to all of your base, your base colours, your matte blending inks, which are lovely. I love the chalkiness of the finish of them on a smooth card, but when you see a pearlescent woodland moss, I think that is just stunning, just lovely. So there we are. You can see the effect of having that layer in particular a lot darker. It really sort of stands out, and it is giving some depth to that foliage. And again, I think you could just leave it at that. There's an awful lot of steps along the way where you don't have to necessarily continue, say, depending on the look that you want to get. So now we have the detailing on the leaves, and I want to do this quite faint. I don't want this to really stand out too much because, as I say, if you're used to watching me on a live, that's just the way that I like to stencil. There's nothing to say that you'd have to do it this way. You can go as dark as you like, but I really do like that tonal effect when I add these details in. So I'm going to get that control by using my larger blending brush there, and I'm using quite a small amount of ink really. You'll see that there's actually not too much ink left on that stencil, but there's just enough just to add those details onto the leaves, which is more than enough for me. And I shall do the same again, but we've got the detailing onto the flowers, so I can swap over, and I might just do different areas in different colours just to sort of change it up a little bit. So I think I'll alternate. I'll make sure all the details are stenciled, but I think I'll just alternate between the cherry bomb and the crushed velvet and just go across all the details like so, and just make sure I've got all of those covered. I can just check that that has worked, and if not, you can go back in and add some more details, perhaps change colour if you feel like what you've just added isn't visible enough. And that's actually the way I like to work. Actually, I'd rather put less ink and just add the ink gradually, to be honest, as opposed to put too much on in the first place and wish that I hadn't done that. So I think that works. I'm more than happy with that. And although the colours do change a little bit because I'm working onto a pink background, I think you'll agree that you can still get just as a beautiful image. And as long as you pick the colour of the background just right, don't go too dark, so you'll make that way you'll be making your inks work a bit too hard for you. But if I lift that up now, and you can see that pearlescent sheen, it's lovely. We might not get the advantage of the mica from the interference, but because we've used the same colour there as what we've used on here, we know that it's going to work. So the two are going to marry together. So I'm more than happy with that. So I'm going to move my ultimate out the way. I'm going to trim this down. Actually, before I trim this down, no, I am going to trim this down, and I'll show you for why in a second. So I'm going to trim this down to get rid of that extra ink there. And I'm going to emboss. Yay! I remembered this time. Isn't that so pretty? I mean, you don't have to emboss that either, I don't think. That is just glorious. That can just sit on a card, and again, just take a sentiment on there, and I think that works really nicely. But I will emboss, of course. So we can line this up. We have more than enough details on here, even though we don't have the bottom strip. So we've lined that up. So I just take this to my machine. And I tell you what would work as well if you were just to emboss this pearlescent cardstock on its own without any stenciling. It's a really nice, it's got the same weight actually as Lisa's cardstock, the one that I have anyway. I've had it in my stash for ages, so it's really nice to use it. So I know that it embosses really, really lovely and picks up all of that detail. So if I just show you that now, you can see on the back. Oh, there you go. You can see on the back. Even that in itself is pretty, isn't it? But you can see on the front, it brings out all of that detail that we've stenciled. So now we can think about putting this onto our card base. So I'm creating a 5x7 card, and as it stands, that doesn't necessarily fit like that, does it? So we do need to do a little bit of trimming down. And what I wanted to do, now that I've embossed it, I can just trim this down to size. We have our little margin there that I can just trim off. And what I want to do, to make this, extend this along, we don't need to worry about extending the design with the stencils. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to trim this possibly in about two-thirds, well, like so. I'm just imagining it. You don't have to do it with the ruler, just sort of do it by eye. And it's like the rule of thirds, isn't it, with design, that, or the rule of three, that works really well with your eye. So I'm just trimming that down. So therefore I can add that piece there and extend this piece out towards the end of the 5x7 card, and this is where this focal image will come into play. So I want to place this across and hide that gap basically. So to start with, I'm going to trim this down to the right height. That's important. And again, I think what we need to do is take away the fear of trimming into what we've just stenciled and embossed. We make so many cards where we stencil and emboss and use it as is. And I think we get a little bit scared sometimes. We think, oh no, I've done all the work. I don't really want to cut into it now. And I think sometimes that just limits us a little bit as to how we can then go ahead and finish a project. So I'm just going to trim the sweet pea, the early sweet pea, down to the same width. So that's basically 5 inches in height now. And I want to choose, or just decide, how wide I want to trim this sweet pea to hide this gap. Now this gap is possibly about 1 inch, so therefore I want my strip from this sweet pea to be about 2 inches, but as long as it's wide enough to cover this strip here. So again, I'm doing it all by eye. I'm doing it all by eye, and I'm going to take the brave step of chopping into this. And you could possibly do this one of, a couple of ways. Depending on how you trim it, you can possibly have a couple of images to use. So if I were to do this, yeah, I'm just actually dithering now. This would be how I would work and how I would talk to myself. So you're getting the true me and the true crafter now. Okay, so that is the image I'm going to use. It doesn't really matter, to be fair, because the image is lovely anyway. So what I'm going to do is use the image like that. Now, to make that a bit more distinct, I'm going to make sure that that is the same width. I'm going to matte and layer this onto a darker colour. So I'm going, I'm going to matte and layer this onto a grey. Now, what you could have done, I think I might have chosen to use the tendrils a bit more. But anyway, I've made my decision, so I'm going to stick with it. So I only need to matte and layer down the sides, I think, because of the way that the layers are working. So I'm hoping you're still following with me. I say what is going on now is my thought process. This is how I would be chatting with myself to actually make up this card. So let's layer this on. Now I'm using this fine tip glue because my larger glue is a bit blocked actually, so that's not ideal. So I'm going to lay this onto the grey card. I'm going to make that flush with the top, so I've got a nice border down the side, and I'm going to trim this so we have a nice border down this side also. And you'll see in a second it'll all come together, and then trim along the bottom, so again that is flush with the bottom of the design. We all have our own ways of working like this, don't we? Say I'm not making any measurements whatsoever. So what I can do now with confidence is to, let's see if I can unblock this. Hopefully that's enough. No, that's not working. I'm not going to risk that. So I'm going to add my background layer to my 5x7 card. So remember that I stenciled this as pretty much a 6x6 image. So anyone seeing these cards for the first time would assume that I haven't used a 6x6 stencil. So it's a nice way just to extend that. Make sure that your two components match each other at the top there. And then we can add our image across there and it looks seamless. Now you can either use 3D foam there, or we can just add this flat to the card. I think that works just like so. Again, make sure that your image is flush all the way along the top so that it looks like it's one continuous piece. And those sweet peas really do marry together. And I think the fact that we've used the same colours in the background and in the foreground has really made that work. And we've just distinguished the background a little bit by using the pearlescent card. And now we can just add our sentiment onto the front like so. And because of these tall and skinny alphabets are just so, they take up so little space that you can still see all the details in the background. So that is our sweet pea card, using all the sweet peas that we have in our collection today and using just 3 inks. So it's actually minimal supplies today, but I really thought it was just a nice idea just to show you how these two designs marry up, even though their release dates were actually quite a long way apart. So, well, who do we have? Camilla from Norway. Hello, lovely to have you here. I'm so glad you could join us. So glad you can join us. Oh, hi, Anne. No worries. Teresa as well. Oh, it would make a lovely get well card, wouldn't it? It would. I think what I might be tempted to do actually is not necessarily add this just now. I'll keep this into my stash as is, and then when I want to use it, it's free for me to put any sentiment on from there. I think any of the sentiments that we have from Lisa would work on there. You could always add a little sentiment the way that we did here with vellum as well. I think that would work also. Again, you're not hiding some of the image, a lot of the image. I think that would work. Actually, if we got happy that I cut the other day, that would work as well, wouldn't it? There's so many different ways. So many different ways. Actually, I've even got just a little sentiment. We could do it like that as well. You don't need to put a huge amount on. Or we could do this. And again, I'm going off on a tangent, and I promise this will be the last one and let you go. We could do something like that as well, which looks really pretty. Or this could be somebody's initials as well, couldn't it? Anyway, I am going off on track there, but it is such a pretty design to use. So I shall leave that with you there today. If you have both of these sets in your stash, I'd love it if you could share if you decide to make something like this, and I'd love to see which colours you use, which colour cardstock you use, or even just see your stenciling. We love everything that you share with us. Actually, I've really enjoyed this week with Lisa's new releases. It's been a busy week as well, isn't it, for lives? I do believe we have Friday Night Live with Lisa again tomorrow. I can't believe Friday's come around that quick again. So I shall leave it there with you. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy Halloween, anyone who is out there planning on doing something. And I shall see you all next week. Take care, everyone.